My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era, and today we have Jamie Gnanapragasam. I finally nailed the last name. And she's the manager of merchandising systems at Parkland Corporation. She's been in the oil and gas industry for 15 plus years, and she was a recent recipient in 2023, of Star Women in Convenience Award. Jamie, thanks for jumping on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored that you reached out.
Jamie is apparently quite nervous, and she shouldn't be, because it's a very casual conversation, but I'm excited to chat with Jamie. The reason how we connected is we have, I guess, a mutual friend in Melanie, who she's not Tamil, but she listens to the podcast. So thank you, Melanie, for the intro.
She eats our food too. I'm pretty sure she eats our food.
Yes, 100% she does. For me, I always like to go back to the beginning or those formative years where a lot of decisions or things we do kind of somehow impact where we are today. So I guess let's start with your childhood and your formative teenage years and like how that played a part in you having an interest and eventually spending, 15 plus years in this, I guess the oil and gas industry. I shouldn't kind of use that general kind of industry, but that was the best way I can categorize it. So
no, that's pretty much the way a lot of people categorize it. Actually, funny enough, I never saw myself getting into this industry. I always wanted to be a doctor when I grew up, and even all the way up until university. I don't think I took a single business course aside from the mandatory ones in high school. When I went to university, I was in a business co-op program. And back then, this industry was very unheard of. Everyone was going for like the sexy big four accounting firms. I wanted to be in the financial services industry. And this opportunity came up to work for Petro-Canada, right? Big Canadian gas station. That's literally what I saw. But I took it, and I'm like looking back, I know it's been 15 years. It was probably the best decision I ever made. It is such a great space for development, a lot of opportunity. I know it's oil and gas, but you'd be amazed at how many opportunities this industry can provide for someone, especially somebody coming through school. Great values, great community culture. So I took it, and I don't think I ever looked back. I think probably the biggest takeaway was this, like when I think about it, when I give, advice to younger cousins when they're trying to pick a career or co-op, is you just never know what opportunity may come your way. And it may not be exactly what you envisioned. Like I thought I was going to be a doctor or surgeon, and then I thought I was going to work for one of the banks. But it actually gave me the most satisfaction, gave me the most growth in choosing the least sexiest opportunity.
So what do you do as manager of merchandising systems?
So yes, I work in oil and gas, but my role in Parkland is focused on convenience store side of the business. So we support the Convenience Canada. My team is primarily responsible for pricing all the items you would find in a convenience store across our Canadian network. My role as a manager is I liaise with the business and our stakeholders inside and outside of the company to ensure that our transactions, so when a consumer goes into the store and picks up something, is super smooth from a customer experience and from our store operator. So my team does all the tech work. I do all the background work, but my biggest focus is really developing the capabilities of my people and creating processes and standards for our company. So not really so much to do with oil in this particular role, but connecting in that we are a convenience and gas station.
Got it. So I guess when you say that part of the experience of like you said, like most people think of oil and gas and you think of Alberta.
Big bad oil. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess, I'm not sure, I guess how much you would know about the economics, because I was always curious about the economics behind kind of the like gas stations and kind of like that consumer facing side of the business, where you often hear of kind of gas being kind of a loss leader to kind of get people in, and actually most of the money is made in these retail locations and like other products or like impulse products.
Absolutely.
Is that
true? That
is
absolutely true. And you're right about the misconceptions, right? Like it's big bad oil, we're price gougers. we're kind of disappearing, we're going to go out of business, like all of those things. You do hear that, but people don't realize is that there's this whole other facet of the business, is particularly when you are working in an integrated company where you do have the convenience side. We're constantly trying to meet the needs of Canadians, right? And innovate at the same time. So yes, people are starting to drive EV cars, but now you're starting to see EV chargers at gas stations. We're always trying to think about how do we get our customer in and out and provide them with the best experience? What can we get them? Can we get them a breakfast sandwich? So we're constantly trying to evolve. And I don't need to be working at a fast food chain in order to kind of get this experience. I get to do all of this within this industry because we're trying to evolve and stay relevant in the environment today.
I guess another way of looking at it is you happen to be working in oil and gas, but really
Yes.
that real estate can be used for anything. Like you said, if oil and gas does kind of phase out or becomes less prominent in the future, what's stopping that real estate from being kind of repurposed? I mean, I don't know if
Absolutely.
mechanics would be the same, but yeah, like you said, with EV chargers. So are you also kind of involved in, because like when I think gas station companies,
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like maybe all gas is pretty much a commodity. But for whatever reason, I always go and pump at Shell, I guess because of the loyalty programs. Are you
Yeah.
involved in that? And like, how are loyalty programs, like how does that kind of fit into this the side of the business you're on?
Oh, it plays a big part. When I worked at Petro Canada, there was the Petro Points program. I'm now at Parkland, and we're trying to build our consumer base. It's a little bit different at Parkland where we operate multiple brands, not just one brand. So I've got like the Huskies, On the Run, etc. So we've developed a loyalty program to link that and drive customers into the store. So we have something called Journey. But as a consumer, there's probably a million different loyalty programs talking to you. You've got a million cards, a lot of things loaded on your phone. So we're always trying to do that little one extra step to try and stay relevant, to try and drive our customers in the store. Partner. You're starting to see that a lot too. You partner up with other loyalty programs. So we've partnered up with Aeroplan, right? So SO's partnered up with, I think, PC Optimum. So you're trying to always innovate and drive your customers to a store and try and build that loyalty because it's a grudge purchase. Nobody wants to buy gas, right? So once you buy your gas, you're usually trying to get out the door. How do you bring them into the store? So you're constantly trying to think of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess the partnerships with these other brands is just really just customer. What's like the cheapest way to acquire a bunch of customers? So
Absolutely. Get
without
their information, get their data, understand what they're trying to pick up, what's their basket when they come into the store. So it's all data as well, right? That you're trying to pick up with these loyalty programs.
without giving away too much, like these are just generally like I'm like very curious about like business stuff in general. How does that work? Like, is there some kind of like rev share? Or, like, if I'm coming, say like that partnership you talked about with like Petro, I think Petro does a bunch of stuff with RBC because I always see like
Mm-hmm.
those like discounts on the gas. So how does that work? Like if I'm RBC, you got a customer through me, like through RBC. Is there some kind of like how do you, I guess, get paid, or how do you pay them to give you this customer that they've acquired?
So I can't speak for both
Yeah.
because I believe it's different for both companies, right? Because especially with PetroPoints was, started up grassroots type loyalty program. They actually didn't partner for a long time with other companies, but I think the data is the biggest piece, right? You're sharing that data. Everybody wants to know what's in the consumer's mindset. And it's kind of a win-win for all. So I can't speak for the revenue side of it, but I know that the data is probably a big driving factor.
Another thing is like I know you've been in the space for a while, but in
Mm-hmm.
particular, like you said, you were at sorry, 15 years at Suncor. And I think it's like whenever I hear of anybody working
I
at a
know.
company more than 10, 15 years, it's very unusual in today's job market where people are job hopping every 3 years. And I guess there are numbers to kind of back that up, which is I guess on average you get paid more when you do jump ship. But I also feel like it's really hard to get good at something if you're not doing it for a long time or like with the same
That's
company.
true.
So again, number one, why did you make that choice? And number two, what did the company do to kind of make you stay so long?
That's actually that you're right because I was the only person in my friend circle that stayed in the company for as long as I did, but it actually didn't feel that long because I didn't stay in the same role. So when I was at Petro, I was hired as a new graduate and they constantly moved us. They rotated us through different positions across the business. So I got a lot of opportunity to work in areas that I don't even think I would have had an opportunity to do anywhere else. So I led a finance and planning team. I have no accounting background. Worked in marketing. So I had so many opportunities. I was never bored.
This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me.
And I was constantly growing and developing. So A, time flies when you're doing that. You're constantly getting new roles and you're adapting and growing. And then B, just the community. It was like a family. I literally grew up in that company. I started off as a co-op student and I stayed there for 17 years, and so did my peers. So when you have that strong network and that family, plus you're constantly growing, why would you leave? Right? You're never going to get bored. But having said that, 17 years is a very long time. And I reached that point where an opportunity came my way to work in a very similar industry, but really hone in on a side of the business that I was really trying to get back into, which is convenience retail. So totally went outside of my comfort zone and left the place that I thought I would retire in, which wouldn't have been a surprise to people, but I left the place and I made the jump. But I think Suncor was the best university I could have been to because it developed me and it really set me up for the work that I'm doing here at Parkland. And even at Parkland, you'll see the same thing. People don't leave as often as you would think, and compared to other industries.
When you think oil and gas, you don't necessarily think that it's an environment that would cater to somebody staying for a long time versus like
Yeah.
people think that might be tech or whatever, but tech, it's very like finicky. Even like the most recent podcast guest, Daxayan from, he's the CTO of TTC.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. It's like I'm seeing these trends. Like he was a co-op student there, and then now he's been there for like I think almost the same amount of time, maybe about 15 years as well. And he said the same thing. It's like you're at the same company, but you're not really doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
you're always kind of getting new challenges or working with new teams, and so it doesn't feel like it's like a long-term relationship,
Absolutely.
but like you're spicing things up by like doing different things. I guess that's kind of the best way I can think of
And
that.
it's like family too, right? So
Yeah.
I don't love every single person that I work with, but they're still your family, right?
Yes.
So, and what's interesting is that Parkland, I come over here, I've got 12 members of my old family that have joined me over here. So it's you don't really get to see that often. Maybe in a financial industry, maybe, but it's such a tight knit community, and I'm a family person. So to have your home away from home and be your work, why would you leave?
Yeah, and I think when you've done something like if you're in the same industry, you might be doing different roles, but
Hmm.
I feel like I like to use sports analogies, but like I don't know if you follow like basketball, but like there's certain like teams that like have done well for a long period of time, and people think it's like all this like there's a secret sauce. Some of it might be like analytics or all these other
Yeah,
things that are kind of particular type organization, but I think the common theme is really the key parties in leadership. So in like basketball, the GM, coach, and
absolutely.
owner, they've been together for like 20 years. So like they know each other well. If you've lasted that long, that means you've kind of figured out how to like disagree and do all that stuff in a long-term, any kind of long-term relationship. So I feel like that continuity is so important because you might be in the same industry for 15 years, but that industry does not stay the same. It's kind of always evolving, changing, new information. So yeah, I definitely agree because I've been doing the same thing for like a long time as well. So like people ask how I know so much about a certain space, but it's because I've been in
You've
there
been
for so
there.
long. So yeah. So I guess along that same theme, how do you personally improve your skills and knowledge to kind of take on these new opportunities and challenges? Like, is it partly offered by the companies you work at, or is it also you're doing something on your end to like up your knowledge as well?
So at Suncor, we didn't really drive our career, good and bad. Well, I can speak to both sides of that. We were really they placed us in different roles. So how I would learn is first of all you're thrown into these roles, right? You hit the ground running. You can sign up for articles, attend conferences and all of that, but how I personally learn is just through my relationships. So I always try to find the SMEs, like your subject matter expert, build a relationship with them, and then I learn on those one-to-one conversations. So again, like been in the industry for so long, I can leverage so many of these relationships that I've taken time to build and go back to the same people and bounce an idea off of them, ask them a question, even if I'm in a different company. It's also very relevant, and I've learned so much through some of the best in the business. So their experience, their learnings probably been more impactful to me than reading a book or attending a conference. So that's how I personally have learned. And even at Parkland, the first day I came in, I didn't know anybody. I was coming into a space that I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Found out from my boss who does this, this, and this, set up coffee chats with them and built a relationship so that I can feel comfortable asking them questions and being able to have them as sounding boards. That's how I've always learned best, I guess.
You make it sound easy in terms of building relationships, because I guess like another way to call it is networking. I don't really like it. I like building relationships, but it's not really an easy thing to do because I think when you're building long-term relationships, I think often people think of it as transactional, and that's where they kind of fail. So I guess tell me, how do you kind of go about, like, what is your way of kind of building relationships? Like, what are your little, like, not tips and tricks because it makes it sound bad, but there is definitely like a science to building like a true relationship that's
Relationship.
not transactional. Yeah.
So it's funny. I actually look at networking as completely different. And personally, and I think it's because I look at it as transactional, which I know it shouldn't be. I know it's not. I know there's a lot of power in networking, but that is the one thing I can't stand doing. I don't know how to do it. I shy away from it. But building relationships, I feel it feels more organic to me. Like you're meeting somebody, you're kind of, I don't know. I look at networking as you're putting yourself on a stage. It's probably not that's what it is. Or I feel like I'm being interviewed, having to speak about myself. Whereas with a relationship, I think it's less transactional. I'm not looking for something. I'm trying to learn about you. You're trying to learn about me. And I'm pretty sure I can hear Melanie in my head telling me right now that's networking. But I look at it as something so different. Like I'm building a friendship, a commonality. I'm trying to learn from you. And then I also put a personal part of that in myself. That's why I think networking feels different. Like I feel like it's very about the job, trying to get a job, trying to get something from you. Whereas relationships, you build on a personal level as well. And that's probably how I've managed to keep my relationships over the years. Even, some of my mentors, some of them I never really enjoyed working for, but I've learned so much from them and I've developed such a great respect for them that we've developed our relationship and gone, even further. So I look at it as a relationship as opposed to networking. So I look at it as very separate.
Would you say on the scale of introvert extrovert, where would you fall?
So hard. I'm an extrovert outside of work, I think. At work, once I get to know you or I'm a little bit more comfortable, then I can be an extrovert. But I do get a little bit shy when it comes to things. Like I even told you I was freaking out about this podcast. But once you get me talking, you can't stop. So
Which is great for the podcast. Yeah, no, I think like for me, people often are surprised when I tell them I'm more on the introverted side, unless you kind of know me. But I would
exactly.
say I'm extroverted. Like I'm more like in a room. Like if I go to a party, I might know everyone, but I'm not like at the center. I'll be kind of in a corner talking to like one or two people, like in-depth conversation, kind of
Yeah.
like doing a podcast in a way, but like in the corner. It's like because I'm very curious about people, but I like to have like to engage in small like groups. So that's why I was just kind of curious because for me, I naturally gravitate towards the way of building relationships that you have, where it's like, I reach out to people. I'm trying to like figure out how to give more than like taking.
Yeah.
And just it's like for me, for most people I reach out to, I don't need anything. It's really, hey, I'm just curious about you. Love to share your story or like other things like, hey, I think you're building a cool product. I think, you could improve by doing this. Versus like I remember like when I did my MBA, there was like all these quote unquote networking events. And I would go and like I just stopped going because literally it just felt like what you said, like I was in an auction or something and like everyone was gauging how valuable I could be to them. And I don't think I was valuable at that point. So I was just like, hey, this is not for me. But I did way better building relationships with like professors or just individual people on a
Yeah.
real human level. So I
That's exactly what it is. The human level, I think, is missing from networking. And I think maybe that's just how I've programmed my mind. And I'm trying to get better at it. I'm actually going to been asked to go to this conference in November. It's with convenience store women leaders across North America. And it's actually an 8-month program, but we're kicking it off live in November. And one of the focuses helping women network in this space, in this industry. And it's something that it just doesn't come naturally to me. But I feel like just like you, if I go into the room and I talk to one or two people, I can build a stronger relationship than I am if I'm going around with my resume and explaining to people what I do. I don't know, I look at it very differently, but building relationships is my secret sauce, I guess.
and you talked about kind of obviously you got invited to this conference and it just relates to you recently kind of being a recipient of the 2023 Star Women in Convenience. So number one, what is this award about? And
Mhm.
I guess number two, like, how did you find out about it? What was your reaction to finding out?
So this award is given out by this industry publication called Convenience Store Canada News. And it's given out every year to women in the convenience and gas industry. And it really shines a light in what's typically a male dominated industry, but of women in all facets of the business. So you can be a merchant or a category manager, franchise owner, a supplier, vendor, whatever. So I'm still incredibly blown away that I was one of the recipients, especially because when I see who I'm up against and who I'm sharing this award with, past and present, it's incredibly humbling. So super humbled about that.
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you.
I actually found out that I was one of the award winners in March. And this whole time I'm rooting for my colleagues who are pretty much the face of convenience. Like they manage the vendors and they have like big portfolios. I'm always in the background. So when I got the email, I actually had to read it twice. I thought it was a mistake. It said don't share. I shared anyways with my colleague just like, are you sure? Because I do pricing. I'm in the background. And it was her that really sat there and said, like, it takes a village. And I should know that, but I guess because I was looking at it from this perspective, it takes a village to run a convenience store, to manage this business. And the fact that they're shining lights on different facets of businesses, it's incredible. So yes, still blown away. I actually didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my family for 4 months until it was released, and I just kind of dropped it in our group chat to surprise them with it. So still on a ride. It's still been pretty cool.
What's been the impact on like your career, I guess, since winning that award? Like, have you got to meet some new interesting people? Any other like opportunities kind of arise from it?
So on a personal level, I think it's done a lot for me personally. I made the leap, right? 17 years in one company, and I made this leap to new company, didn't know anybody. And I got this award a year and a half of being into this role. So for me personally, I didn't regret the decision, but it helped validate and boost. I made the right decision coming out of my comfort zone. So from that level, it was great. A lot of my former colleagues and peers from Suncor reaching out and just saying, like, we knew you had it in you. I've always struggled with confidence, to be quite honest. So getting this award and having people reach out and just saying, like, this is what we're talking about, it really helped boost my confidence at the same time. And yeah, I think I'm looking forward to September. It's going to be our awards gala. We're going to have, so I'm going to get to meet the other recipients. So I think that'll be really cool. And just getting to network with the other recipients, past and present too, and learning from them as well. It's going to open up my network. So I'm looking forward to that. But for me, I think this win has been more personal than anything else and helped develop me and bring me a little bit more confidence.
That's amazing. I guess shifting to the personal side, as I was kind of like doing some research on you, I stumbled across this like on
Oh
page
my
two of
gosh.
Google, this 2020 article in the Toronto Star. I think your participation in, I don't know if you still do it, which I was curious about the Santa Claus Fund.
Mhm.
And I think there was this one year, I think you had a serious injury and you couldn't figure out if you could still fulfill your obligation, but you ended up doing it. So I guess it's just like a number of thoughts there. Is number one, what is the Santa Claus Fund? Number two, do you still participate? And like, I guess is kind of the spirit of kind of giving back, or like I guess giving back is something that you're passionate about and you regularly still do today.
So Toronto Star runs the Santa Claus Fund, which I think has been going on for over 60 years now. And what it does is they collect funds and donations and they give gifts to kids across the GTA and beyond. Gifts like mittens, things that they would need, kids who don't come from very fortunate homes. I am a huge Christmas person. I absolutely love it. And I recognize how fortunate we are that we can celebrate, our traditions and gifts and foods and parties, and other people can't. So I used to just donate to the fund, and I saw the opportunity to participate as a volunteer where we actually go to these homes and deliver. So I did it one year, and it's mind blowing, right? What you see and how excited these little kids are to get something that, some of us wouldn't even think twice about. And it was actually a Tamil family that I delivered to once. That was the first family that actually brought tears to my eyes. So walk up to their door. It is freezing, typical Toronto cold weather. Door's broken. They open the door. There's a mattress right on the floor,
Oh,
right? Front door. And two little kids, I think they were twins. I'm pretty sure they were twins. They are in their diapers. It is freezing cold, and this house has nothing in it. It
mm.
literally is, as soon as you open the door, you literally can see everything there. And they were just screaming and bouncing up and down just to get these two gifts because they're very brightly wrapped and whatnot. And that hit home. I don't know. I think it's because it was a Tamil family that you just kind of relate very quickly. So it hit home. So I started to do it every single year. And I started to bring in colleagues, friends to do it with me. Unfortunately, I will be the first to admit, last few years I stopped, just couldn't get people to do it with me and whatnot. But actually, it was you that reminded me that, you know what, this is an organization that I think you get more impact from doing this because you see where this is going. It really makes you appreciate too, as opposed to just writing a check. So definitely something I'd like to get back into now.
And I guess speaking of like family, you talked about being very family centric. What are, I guess, how's your family played an impact or like part in you making the choices you've made in your like life so far?
I'm very lucky. I have a very strong support system. I'm very tight with my family, as you said. They've always been my cheerleaders, very proud of me no matter what I do. So I'm very lucky that I'm here today because of their support. Anything I would have done, they would have had my back. So I'm very lucky to have them there. The values that my parents have taught us have also helped shape me today and who I am. And just, we talk about relationships, right? In building relationships and giving back. That's all from my parents. But I think over the past few years, I've learned that the values that they've taught me, they're great in shaping me, but I also have to learn how to adapt in the corporate landscape because what was true and did well for them in their generation doesn't necessarily translate in corporate landscape. So I've had to learn that it's okay as an individual to like step up and take recognition. That was very hard for me. As a people leader, I've had to become more assertive, speak up more. That's not exactly how I was brought up in my home. So it's been a balance of taking all the good and being grateful for all the good that they've taught me, but also learning how to adapt in my career at the same time. So that little bit of a balancing act there for me. So they played that part there too.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have two younger brothers.
Okay, so you're the oldest.
They're very different though from me. They
Uh,
have no problem. I don't know if it's because they're younger, but they have no problem like taking a stand and pushing back. It took me a while to just kind of adapt that.
got it. And is there like what's an example of something that, because I mean, I think a lot of kids when they grow up, they have these, oh, my parents are right, but I didn't listen to them when they were younger. So what's the example, one thing that maybe your parents kept saying is true, like when you were younger, but you kind of disregarded it. Now you're like, yeah, they were so right.
That's a tough one. I was always scared of my parents. So I tried to do whatever they wanted, but I'm trying to think. I'm not sure, but I think I'm turning into my mom a lot, and she always threatened that would happen. So I'm starting to take her place a little bit, but that's a tough one. I might have to get back to you on that.
Okay. I'm a big fan of like when I make mistakes, I like I learn pretty quickly not to do it again. But I call them learning lessons now. So for yourself, what's been an example of like a learning lesson you've um, experienced in like the last, I don't know, 3, 5 years? And what was your learning from that experience?
I think I've probably grown the most in the past 5 years, and it's because I finally decided to step outside of my comfort zone quite a bit. And I think, I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? I don't regret any of the career choices I made in the past, but seeing how much I've grown and how much I've changed and developed and just everything that I've learned in the past 5 years because I've stepped outside of my comfort zone and wanted to diversify myself. If that's one thing I could change, I wish I did it when I was a little bit younger or earlier in my career, as opposed to, I don't want to say coasting, but following whatever path was laid out for me from my previous company, or just taking the easy jobs or taking the easier opportunities because I was scared and just felt really nice and comfortable. So that's something, if I had to go back and change, I would do that because it wasn't until I started to take these little steps outside of my comfort zone that I found the most growth.
And in terms of like your identity, like in terms of your Tamil identity and this community, like how connected would you say you feel to like whether it's like the Toronto community or like the general Tamil global community?
I mean, being Tamil is inherent in me, right? Like, so even though I was born in Canada, parents are deeply rooted in our culture and they've really passed that down, whether it's, through traditions, cultural, the food. I feel connected to it, but it's not something that I just kind of think about. It just kind of inherently happens. I don't know how to say that, but, whether it doesn't strike me twice to throw on a sari when I go to a wedding or, explain to people what my background is and where we're from and whatnot. So I feel connected in that sense that it's second nature to me. I grew up as a Tamil Catholic, so when I in school, I didn't have that many Tamil colleagues or friends, and even when I went to university, pretty diverse group of friends. But I don't think that took away from my Tamil identity at all. In fact, I love sharing who we are, sharing our culture, our food, and whatnot to others. I think it gave me more of an opportunity to speak about our culture.
If you had a chance to go back in a time machine and talk to 16-year-old Jamie,
Mm.
what would you tell her?
Speak up more. To speak up more. I like that whole stepping out of your comfort zone. If I could go back, I would say speak up more, take more risks and chances. It's okay. I was always terrified of making a mistake. You say you learn quickly. I just didn't want to make the mistake at all, right? So I think if I had that sense of confidence in me at 16, I think things would be a little bit different. I wouldn't change anything, but I definitely would go back and shake her a little bit.
Money can be hard to come by, but here's a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free? I think I realized that I was a bit unusual in the sense that I didn't really care about failure, in the sense that like for me it's always like, all right, like I learned by iter itch. I can't even say the word, but like basically just doing the same thing over and not over and over, but like testing things. So
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna write up a blog, I'll just write it up. It might not be great, but if it's like 80% there, I'll put it out, see what people say, and then I'll just get better next time because somebody will say something, or I'll just read it and be like, hey, what was I thinking? I do that with everything, like invested,
Yeah.
career, personal. Like I guess I don't like overthinking. I think I used to do it a lot. I think to your point, like I think it's just something you have to train yourself to do. It's not like
Yeah.
I think it's not like second nature to most people. I think it's something you have to really train doing. So no, I just wanted to kind of bring that up. And I guess looking forward, the personal legacy question, which is how do you want to be remembered by your friends and family, like in a few sentences?
I want to be remembered as a people person. Above anything, my relationships, not just professionally, my personal relationships mean a lot to me. They're probably my biggest asset and I value them a lot and I pour a lot of time into them. So if someone wants to remember me, I want them to remember me as a people person, someone who really valued every relationship that I have.
All right. Well, that's kind of a good segue into the last part of the podcast, which is a fun speed run I like to call Creator Confession. So I'm going to basically say a bunch of statements and you're going to tell me the first thing that pops to mind. Ready?
Okay.
Favorite Tamil food?
Oh, string operas and mutton curry.
There's a fire in your place and you have time to only grab two things. What would they be?
My mom's 40th birthday gift to me and this letter that my grandmother gave me.
Something that scares you.
The unknown.
Insecurity that you have.
Is it bad to say my age right now?
Favorite show you're watching.
I'm rewatching Suits right now.
I did the same thing after it popped on Netflix. I was like, I'm
Yes,
gonna watch this. Then
that's
I watched
exactly why.
then I watched the first episode. I'm now on like season 4. I was like, how did I get here? But such a good show. Place you're itching to travel to.
I'm going to the south of France next week.
Awesome. Which part? Like Nice?
Nice.
Nice, yeah. I think I went there a long time ago. So it's such a beautiful place.
I can't wait.
Fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, my family, Maya, Bastian Pillay, Genevieve, very proud of them.
For those of you who haven't heard their episodes, they are previous guests on this episode, or on this podcast, sorry. Favorite childhood memory?
Going to the beach with my parents and my siblings.
Something you like to do for fun outside of work?
I'm a huge foodie. I live downtown and I'm constantly looking for new restaurants. So it's like my thing every week, new restaurants.
What's your top 3 go-to places right now?
It's hard to get in there now because now they were named Michelin, but Osteria Julia, so good. La Palma, also great. and as our kitchen in Ossington.
I love my food, so I will make note of that for sure.
Definitely go.
Favorite movie of all time? It could be Tamil, English, or both.
Goodfellas.
Something that you could benefit from caring less about.
Making mistakes.
Decision you've been putting off for a while.
Oof. I need to move, and I've been putting it off.
Like move away from downtown Toronto?
Yeah, I need to move into a bigger place, and it's just I like where I am, but I know I need to move, and it's just something I just keep pushing off.
This is a side tangent. I'm just curious because I live in a condo. I'm family in
Exactly
a
why.
condo, and I have always been like I grew up in a house, but now that I live in a condo, I love the convenience of it. Like, I mean, like there's still some things to do, but not as much as I feel like living in a like, house. So what is pushing you towards? And you don't have to share it. I'm just more so
Oh,
curious.
no. It's exactly that. I've lived in this condo. I love it. I love being downtown. I love the convenience, but I love to host.
Ah,
And ever since COVID happened, I feel like my entire life is in this place, right? So I know I need to move to a bigger place for my own mental health because I find that I work, I sleep, I work. It's all in this one space. So I need to move. Plus, I have a niece and nephew, and every time they come over and they're getting bigger and touching everything, I fucking need more space even for them. It gives me anxiety to watch them run around my place.
that's a good point. Okay, yeah, I can see that for sure. Um, let's see here. Okay, who's somebody that you would love to have on your like invisible personal counsel, meaning like hypothetically 24/7, you could have access to their brain or thinking or get their advice.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm sure there'll be some version of chat GTP embedded with like different historical figures or smart people that we can do this with eventually, but yeah.
Honestly, my grandfather, not alive anymore, has been passed away for 30 years, but probably one of the most knowledgeable people I ever knew. And I would love to talk to him from now and share with him now and go to him for advice.
What's a purchase that you've made in the last few years that you've splurged on, but you have no regret about it?
My car.
Should I ask what kind of car it is?
It's nothing super fancy or special, but it's my baby. It's a RDX, an Acura RDX, but I didn't need all that space, but I wanted the space in the big car.
Pet peeve.
Oh, slow drivers in the left lane.
A person or a celebrity that you look up to.
No celebrities, but I've got a couple of cousins that um, that I look up to quite a lot, especially when it comes to building career. Female cousins, so them. I go to them for a lot.
If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have.
I'm an emotional person, but I don't like to state it. So I think if I were to go tomorrow, I would regret not telling my family I love them because it doesn't roll off the tongue for me very easily. For my parents, my siblings, just my niece and nephew. So tomorrow, if I were to go, I'd feel really bad that haven't been able to say that to them.
A celebrity whose life you'd want to experience for one day.
I really like Denzel Washington. I love all his movies. I'd love to be him. I feel like he doesn't care. He's got to this point where he can do whatever he'd like to do. He's made a success. So him,
He's so cool. I love all his
right?
too. What's your favorite Denzel movie?
Oh, what was the one with the girl? Why am I forgetting it now?
What is it about?
The kidnapped girl.
Oh, Man on Fire.
I loved him in that. He was good there. I didn't like the one that my gosh, now I'm losing all of my thing. The one that I think he won an award for. He was the bad cop.
Forgot. Oh, yes, I do remember the movie. The Florida one. Something in Florida. I just forgot.
Yeah, didn't like him in there, but loved him in Man on Fire. So, so good.
I like one of his underrated movies, I think, is John Q.
Oh, yeah, make me cry
I
every
definitely
time
agree
you
with you
watch that.
100%. Yeah. What's a book you've read or a podcast you've listened to that's had an impact on you?
I'm sad to. So I've read a book. It was a true story. It didn't have an impact on me in terms of like a career or anything, but it was about the Kingston honor killings. I don't know if you ever heard of that. These three sisters that were killed
Oh, yes, a
for,
long time ago. Yes.
yes, a long time ago. So I actually recently read the book about, their lives, the trial and all that. And I that impacted me so much because I kept thinking about, their lives and what it was like to be them. So recently read that and I didn't stop crying. I kept thinking about them.
Uh, Belief, behavior, or habit that's improved your life.
Um, stepping out of the comfort zone. You can't go wrong, right? And learning from those mistakes.
And finally, a piece of advice that you would give to your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there.
Don't be afraid of change. If I could take it back, I would definitely step up and step out uh, a lot earlier in my career. And it's done so much for me. I've learned so much. I've grown so much. Um, so definitely embrace any opportunity. It doesn't matter if it wasn't exactly what you pictured it to be. You just never know what doors will open for you.
Awesome. Thank you for kind of jumping on, Jamie. For somebody listening that's inspired or like wants to just pick your brain, connect with you, what is the best way for someone to reach out to you?
Oh, on LinkedIn, on email, but LinkedIn probably the best place for you to hit me up. I'd welcome it. I'm also like I said, I'm building relationships, so I'm always eager to meet new people and chat. So definitely, please don't be shy.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jamie, and appreciate you sharing your story, your journey. And for those of you listening, as always, appreciate it. And on to the next one.
Thank you, Aura.